I have had people infer that I was only present because of race or gender or both. However, I choose not to let that really enter my psyche, really, or deter me from what I'm there to do.
Mona Edwards says throughout her career that includes leadership roles in the public and private sector in Greensboro, and now her own company, that in most cases she's been the first woman, the first African American, or both.
However, I'm so used to it. I mean, that's just the way I was raised. My parents, my family raised us with a mindset of you're going to have to work twice as hard because there are perceptions in this country that African Americans are less than. So in order to overcome that, you're going to have to work twice as hard to prove, yourself.
I think we all live in our own bubbles. Mine was certainly shaped by growing up in Eugene, Oregon, where I was born, in a very white community. We thought that diversity was going to a Chinese restaurant and eating with chopsticks. That was about as diverse as we got.
I asked longtime educator Mark Hale if he recalled a time when he or any of his white friends thought someone else got something because of the color of their skin.
I have heard that from my white friends, yes. But I really think that it's a matter of growing the pie, not excluding folks. It's really about making the opportunities bigger and seeing how that benefits everyone.
Mark and Mona come from totally different backgrounds, but they have common ground. They both now run their own leadership coaching and consulting companies, and they're both on the board for NCCJ, an organization that works to build communities free of bias, bigotry, and racism. Part of their work is helping others learn how to talk about tough issues related to race. It's not easy, but it gets easier.
I think the first thing to do is to be curious and not try to advance your own agenda, but to really understand the other person's perspective.
As a coach, I also listen to, what may be the fear that's behind that statement or behind that question, because oftentimes I believe that's at the root. It's a fear of loss, a loss of power, a loss of access, a loss of something.
Edwards says one thing we all have in common is the desire for a chance to have a full and meaningful life.
I think oftentimes we position things as a win-lose. If I get accepted, then you don't. And I think rather than a win-lose proposition, if we can focus on, where we're all starting from. We all want a good quality of life. We all want access to opportunity. And can we start there and talk about, well, what are some ways to provide that entree and that access for everyone, not just some people, all people.
And I've just found that when you're empathetic and listening and allow people to open up, sometimes they hear themselves. They go, wow, I don't know if I really believe what I'm saying or not.
In black and white, Tracy Clemens, Fox 8 News.